everybody, this is Rexluna here from allthat'sepic.com's cosplay section, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about how to care for your wigs. Now, wigs can tend to be some of the most expensive things you'll ever need to get for your cosplays, so obviously you'll want them to last a long time, especially if you plan to use it for more than one costume. So, you definitely need to take care of them. One of the biggest issues you're going to come across is how you're going to store them when you're not in use. Now, if you have a wig that's long like this, you're going to want to wrap it up in a braid. Now, in this case, I just was able to do it in one long braid, and as you can see, I just wrapped it around the neck of my wig head. I have 4 wig heads, that's all I have room for, and I have them on top of one of my bookshelves. And any wigs that I'm thinking of using soon, or ones that I can't just put in a package and put away in a box, I keep on the wig heads. Now, the only problem you might come across in this case is if you keep it in the braid for too long, it can get a little wavy, kind of like if you do that to your hair when it's long and it's wet and it comes out, it gets these waves. Now, I don't know how well you can see it on this wig, but this wig I also had in a braid, and I had it actually in a bag in a box. And this was in there long enough and it got warm enough under my bed that it's actually a little bit wavy, which is fine. It actually looks kind of cool. And if I leave it out like this, it'll probably just go back to normal. And if not, I can just use some light heat and straighten it out. So if it's a character whose hair is supposed to be super straight, definitely make sure that you don't keep it out there too long. Take it out every so often and comb it out. So speaking of combs, there's a specific type of comb you're going to want to use. You can't just use any little plastic comb or any hairbrush. You're going to want one with metal teeth. So this is the wig comb that I have. It's got metal teeth, nice plastic handle, it's really durable. It's also nice and easy to pack into my suitcase, small and flat stuff. I don't remember, honestly, where I got it. Pretty sure it was somewhere on eBay, but I don't remember the seller. If I did, I would tell you, but I'm sure if you search for wig comb, you'll find something similar. If not, there's also brushes that they sell with metal teeth on a lot of different wig websites. If you can't find either of those or just don't have the time, if you go to pretty much any drugstore, Safeway, Walgreens, Target, whatever, if you go to their hair care section, you can get a pick, which is a plastic comb. Like when you think the typical like comb and a big afro thing, that's what a pick looks like. So that will work in a pinch if you can't get either of these. Okay, now for an example of combing out a wig, I have this one black wig that kind of willy-nilly threw in a box and forgot that I put it in there. So when I took it out, I realized, wow, it's very tangled. So what you're going to do, when you pin it on a wig head, you're going to want to make sure you pin it on there really well. Otherwise, when you comb it, it's just going to rip itself off. So, normally I put this on my tripod, but obviously my tripod's in use. So, I usually put a pin right in the front, usually where there's the thicker elastic. I don't know how well you can see what I'm doing, but right here where it's thicker, the pin will go through. Should keep it pretty good hold on it. And then there's always these parts here, like the little ear flaps. I put one on each side there. And then lastly, I always put one in the back. Try and find the thickest part of the weft to put it through. So either through this band here or maybe through where the tag is. So I want to shake it and around. Yeah, it's not gonna fall off. It's pretty good. So, this one's not too long. I can probably get most of these tangled out just with my comb. I don't need to use any product. So just like if you have long hair, like really long hair, you start from the bottom and you work your way up. And if you're really having trouble, it's best to start if you take it in sections and do a section at a time and then blend the untangled sections together. Maybe start with the bang so it at least looks better. Yeah, this is really hard trying to hold it up and brush it at the same time. Normally I use one hand to hold it and the other hand to brush the hair. But you don't want to go too hard, otherwise you might just pull hairs out, which when you're doing it on your normal head isn't such a problem because your hair grows back, but obviously your hair doesn't grow back on a, or the hair does not grow back on a wig. Got a pesky little knot here. There we go. This is normally what I would do. And that way I keep it from tugging all the way onto the top wefts. See, that came out a lot better there. Didn't have any problem. But yeah, so see how that's already looking a whole lot better. I don't know how long you can see, but look at how like terrible this looks and how nice and silky this whole section is. So I'm gonna have to do the rest of this, but that's really all you need to do when it comes to detangling, you know, medium length wigs. So at least straight ones, but curly ones are a little bit different. Alright, so here we've got a nice short to medium length wavy curly wig thing. So when I brush it out, the curls will kind of come apart. You'll see in a second here. So it'll stop being curly and be more wavy. Now that could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing, depending on what you want. So if you want these waves to be like that, awesome. If not, you're gonna have to take your fingers and sort of wrap them around these curls, sort of force them to ringlet the way that you want it to. I'm having a little trouble with this because this wig is not really meant for that. But there we go. Just force it to separate with your fingers. And this kind of wig is the kind of one that if you're wearing it at a convention, you need to brush it and separate the curls frequently, otherwise it's just gonna be a huge mess, and I know from experience. Right, so now it looks nice and brushed out, but the curls aren't all fused into this giant wavy mass. So if I wanted to keep these separate ringlets for whatever reason for my costume, now I've still got them. So you might think short wigs, like my Miku base wig here, are safe from any kinds of harm. They're not gonna get tangled or damaged in any way, but that's not necessarily true. Now, it's true, it's not really gonna get tangled, but there are other problems that can come up. Now normally I would just kind of fold it in half and put it in my box with all my other short wigs and just kind of layer them. But the problem that can come up, especially if you live in warmer areas, is it just kind of starts to stick in that position. So what'll happen is it'll fold sort of in half, and then when you undo it, you get a little crease in the top of your wig. And that will eventually come out, but if you take it out and then go to an event and try to put it on, that crease is gonna be there. It's not gonna go away like that. So what I usually do is I try to do it somewhere between 3 and 6 months. It depends on how often I have an event. So every time I go in a wig box, I kind of take my wigs out and redo them. Is I flip it inside out so that this way it's laying in the other direction. And when it's laying like this, it doesn't usually go as flat. And then some of the hairs will kind of lay in a different direction. It just keeps things from getting sat on in one direction for too long. Because, like I said before, it makes these wigs all wavy. Now, if you have a wig with a pigtail or ponytail attachment, I like to keep all of mine hung on the back of my door. Now, when I say that, I mean I actually bought a hook that like hooks over the side of the door, kind of like wreaths during Christmas, and it has a bunch of hooks that just stick out, and then I take these little butterfly clips and just go whoop, and then that way when my longer ones are hanging down, they're only moving about this much and they're not just scrunched up in a box. Now in the case of this little smaller one, that's not really a problem. I don't need to hang it up, because the worst that it's going to get tangled is probably something like this, and then just brush it out a little bit. That's all better. Now, if you have a smaller one like this, I would still recommend keeping it somewhere, not just kind of throwing it in a box. What I like to do is keep all of the plastic bags that my wigs come in, one part being that I can store them, or bring them with me to conventions that way. And also, eventually, I might not want a wig anymore, and I can sell it and send it to people in that. Now, if your wig is super, super long, or your pigtail is super, super long, a brush or a comb is just not going to be enough. You're going to need a product that's going to help you with the detangling. Now, the best one for wigs is something called Motions. You can see that, there we go. And this, I believe I found it at like Walgreens or CVS, possibly even Safeway, but it's usually at some of the weirder drugstores, usually not like Safeway or Target. It's usually more like Walgreens. But you have to be really careful with this because it gets kind of greasy and it'll make your wig look kind of greasy if you put too much. So you have to be very light with your sprays. Let's see if I can try to show you. And also it smells kind of good, so that's nice. But, and do it from a distance. And then you just do the normal procedure of combing it from the bottom and working your way up. It also will kind of bring the shine back out in a wig if it's getting a little dull. Normally I do this a little differently too, but I can't. So, I spent a few minutes just brushing out the bottom, and as you can see, hopefully, it looks a whole heck of a lot nicer than it did before, and compared to this top part that I haven't brushed out yet. Even just the color. I don't know how well the color will show up, but to me the color looks a lot more vibrant on the bottom than it does on top. So, that is a very amazing product to have if you have a long wig. Especially when it comes to these pigtails. These pigtails are a freaking mess. Alright, last but not least, we have styled wigs. Now this is the most styled wig I actually have. I know it's not much, but it's enough that I don't actually want to put it with the rest of my wigs. I don't want to fold it up and put it in a box or anything like that. So I keep this on the wig head and I put it up on my shelf with the rest of my more recently used wigs. And it has never left this wig head ever since it's been styled. Now, if I was ever to need to bring this to a convention, I would keep it on the head. And since I actually don't do the driving to my conventions, I would just hold it in my lap and just not let it go. But if I didn't have that luxury, or if I had to ship it, if I was moving, I would put this in a box. I would fasten this to the bottom of the box with tape or something like that, and fill the box with packaging stuff like newspaper, bubble wrap, all that kind of stuff. So for those of you who don't have the ability to like just kind of keep the wig heads out, that's what I would do. Make sure that it has a lot of room so that if it does get bumped, it's not going to go and smash the wig. Especially if it's something like Cloud from Final Fantasy VII or Sora from Kingdom Hearts, because with those spikes, if something hits it, it's just going to destroy it. In a case of something like this, it's not as much of an issue, but I still want to keep it in as best condition as I can. Alright, so just a couple more things before I end this video. First of all, you definitely are going to want a wig head, at least one. It just makes it a lot easier for doing all the styling, especially when it comes to brushing it out. That is way easier when you have a wig head to pin it to. I got mine locally, luckily, so I didn't have to go buy it online. It cost me like 20 bucks per head, but most wig shops online sell them. I'm pretty sure Arda and Cosworks both sell them. I'm not sure the pricing because I've never looked because I don't need more wig heads. Second being, you should probably get some kind of stand for doing your styling and brushing out, at least if you have enough long wigs to merit it. In my case, like I said, I used the tripod. The adjustment lever can stick up and I can put the wig head on top because it has a hole in the bottom. I also know there's some similar stands that I think are also kind of tripods that you can clamp to the edge of a table. If you don't have either of those, I believe there's actually some tutorials online of people who've like gone to Home Depot and just kind of whipped up something and made their own stand. I don't have the link for it, but I'm sure Google will set you right. Yeah, I think that's everything. If you have any questions, as always, go ahead and leave a comment, find me on Twitter and ask me, send me a message, whatever. And, of course, check out allthatseparate.com for all that's cosplay. This is Rexluna. See you next time.